Let's kick it off here. Yeah, excited for another episode here of Hug Your Metrics. And, this one is definitely a special one because the guest is Dr. K, somebody that I've been working with over the last, almost year and a half now. And Dr. K specifically is a habit coach who now works with entrepreneurs and works with business owners to improve their habits. But Dr. K's background is actually, he's a medical doctor. He has a master's in psychological medicine. And he actually started out in the past working with weight loss patients, and then eventually kind of made the switch over to working on habits with entrepreneurs, business owners, executives. And with that said, I think, Dr. K, I just want to kind of kick it off and ask you, what led you from helping weight loss patients initially, and then what kind of made that transition over to working with business owners?
So I've always been interested in behavior and behavioral therapy and things like that was sort of the background. And not that I came up with the idea, but I sort of realized that for weight loss, a lot of people were doing dieting temporarily, drastically, sort of starving themselves, try to get to a certain weight, and then they'd gain it all back once they got to their weight. And I sort of realized that actually the better solution was to change habits, so the things you do normally every day are the things that just help you maintain your weight. So I ran that clinic for a long time, and helping people with habits. They would, once we solved one thing, they'd go, I need help with other different habits. So our mutual friend, Justin Lewis, he was one of my clients, and basically everything was going fine, and then Ozempic hit. It basically I was in denial for a while. I thought, oh no, this isn't going to have much of an effect. But then people were saying, oh, all my friends are on it. And I thought, this is not good. And I was talking to Justin about this, and he said, I've always liked this. And he's an agency owner. And he said, I always thought people like me could really benefit from habits and changing habits. And so I pivoted, and it's been great. Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed it. And it's been, I think, really beneficial to clients from doing this.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
Dr. K. In this show, we invite experts in fields, but they also are highly related to the field they're in. And so I'm really excited because you really are kind of bringing a different angle from the growth mindset. I'm really interested about how habit and a lot of stuff that you are doing on your side that help entrepreneurs like me and Brian over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. K, I want to...
go ahead, Leo.
I want to maybe throw something very obvious out there, and hope that's okay with you. What's the pain point of forming? Why is it so hard for people to form habit? Can you break it down for us a bit?
Yeah, I would actually take issue with that, because I actually don't think it should be hard to change habits or to create a habit. But I think what happens is the way most people go about trying to change habits is they make it more difficult. And often the issue is that they will try and do too much too soon. So as an example, let's say you wanted to start meditating and someone told you should meditate for 30 minutes a day. And what most people will go, right, I need to meditate 30 minutes a day. That's quite hard to do if you haven't done it before. And then that's why you get people saying, oh, it's really hard. I did it for a little bit, and then something came up and I forgot or wasn't able to do it. And it just becomes more challenging. But if you approach it in the right way, it shouldn't be difficult. And I often say to clients, if this habit change process is difficult, we've taken a wrong turn somewhere. It should actually feel so easy that the creation of the habit should feel inevitable, like it's unstoppable.
I see. So, doctor, sounds like what you were saying is that a lot of people, and I myself included, right, I often out of the gate have a very ambitious goal, right? I want to change the world tomorrow, and when I fail to do that tomorrow, I give up. Is that sort of what you see usually for a lot of people who try to build a new habit into their repertoire?
Exactly. So I would say to someone, let's say, go with the meditation habit. Rather than half an hour, I would say to people, start with much, much less. So sometimes a client will say, oh, well, you mean 10 minutes? And I'll be like, lower. And they'll go, what, 5 minutes? I'll go even lower. I've had clients start with like 10 seconds of meditation a day, right? Like so low. And I'll say to clients, you almost want it to be so low that you'd be embarrassed to tell someone else, like, hey, I've started meditating. I meditate 10 seconds a day. Like, other people are going, what is that? That's not a habit. But you want it to be that low. That's so embarrassing that it's that low. But it's fine, because in the beginning, it doesn't matter how much you're doing. It's more about establishing the habit of doing it every day. And it's easy to do 10 seconds a day. And once you're consistently doing that, then you start ramping it up. So it's following that process just makes it a lot easier, rather than jumping to half an hour and it doesn't happen, and then you think, oh, what's wrong with me? I failed, and give up.
Yeah, that was definitely something that working with Dr. K that we worked on, in the beginning, where I think it is a really common thing where people have a goal, whatever it is, and like you said, Leo, they're too ambitious and they give up because they fail. And so like just working on that consistency, and like Dr. K said, like it is almost funny sometimes where it's like, well, hey, I want to read a book, but if you're struggling to read a chapter, just read a page a day. And then because when you read a page, it's like, well, I'm probably going to read more once I read that page. Maybe not, but probably, right?
Yeah.
And that's definitely been pretty important to me for both like personal habits as well as like professional habits. It's just starting slow, and this might segue kind of into the next question too of what are the best ways to basically build habits. Dr. K, I know we talk about and like I have a daily habit tracker that I use. We have our weekly one-on-ones which give some accountability. Also there's rewards, triggers, like what do you find really works the best for your clients and just for people in general to start building these habits?
Yeah, so I follow a certain process which involves a lot of those things you just mentioned. So the first thing you want to do is always make sure that there's a trigger for a habit. So you can imagine a lot of people will say, I want to start this habit, and then they get to the end of the week and they say, oh, I forgot to do it every day this week, even though that was my intention. So a trigger is something that basically reminds you to do it. And a trigger can be like an alarm on your phone. It could be a Post-it note, or you could, the best one is to attach it to an existing habit. So let's say you wanted to do stretches, you could attach it to brushing your teeth in the morning, because you always brush your teeth in the morning and then you attach the stretches. So you always want a trigger. And then the other things you want is, like you said, tracking, because tracking definitely helps to make sure you're doing it. And like I said, you want to start small, start very small, don't start too big. And you also want to add in rewards there. So you want to make the act of doing it rewarding. And the reward is not something like, oh, if I do these habits, I'll buy myself an ice cream tomorrow or at the end of the week. You want to bring the reward to be as immediate as possible. So, for instance, if it stretches, what I'll often say to clients is, how do you feel immediately after stretching? What's a positive feeling you feel after stretching? Oh, no, I actually felt a little bit, looser, and I felt a bit better. And you want to go with that, because if you can get a positive feeling immediately, you're going to be more likely to do it. People often make the mistake, they have a reward that's too far in the future that doesn't motivate them in the moment. And then the other thing you want to do with habits is you want to be cut yourself some slack, and you're not always going to get it right first, and to be iterative about it. So you want to adjust. You may not get it right to begin with, but just make adjustments. You've got to be really flexible about it. I think a lot of people are too rigid, where they go, I must do this habit. If I don't do it, I failed and I'll just give up. Whereas you actually just, cut yourself some slack.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've definitely struggled with that. I think, especially before working with you, where, I want to go run, and I want to run, and I'm not a runner, and I start running 5 miles a day. And, I feel maybe good the first day, but then my body hurts, and then I try to run again, and then I get shin splints, and then I give up. And so I think it kind of goes back to your thing about, start as small as possible, like walk/run for 15 minutes, half hour, every other day, kind of build up. And I think that's also where, at least, I love the habit tracker. In fact, I had one before we were working together, but it would go for a month or two, and then I'd give up on it. So I think, like, the thing that you preach a lot is just how important consistency is. And I love how you can see that in the habit tracker too, where you don't need to do it every single day, but you can see, okay, I did it twice this week. That's better than 0 the week before,
Yeah.
And I know that that's definitely like a big tool you work with your clients on, right? Is just the habit tracker. I mean, I think it is like you pretty much say you have to have one, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe not everybody in the world, but like it just if you're trying to improve habits, it's one of the foundational tools to have.
Yeah, I won't work with a client unless they use a habit tracker. And some people have tried. They said, "Oh, I don't like spreadsheets and things." But you definitely want to keep the habit tracker. And one of the first habits we set up is checking the habit tracker every day. Because once you start checking the habit tracker every day, then you can start plug and play. You can start putting in other habits in there, and you've got this habit where you're always checking it, and that becomes part of the trigger to remember to do it. So it's really, it's a really helpful habit to have that habit tracker checking as a habit.
Yeah.
Doctor,
Absolutely.
as you guys are saying it, it seems to me it's so easy.
Yeah.
Right?
It should be.
It's like a no-brainer, right? And and I'm sure a lot of people are also looking at this framework and they're saying that is really easy. Like I can do it too. But when it comes to action, what is it really actually hard, and what comes up?
I think obviously Brian's got the accountability that he's meeting with me every week. That obviously does make a big difference, right? So if you're
not a lot of
on your
people
own,
will have that condition, right? Maybe to have a system allow them to have an accountability check-in process.
Yeah, exactly. And also there's always, and Brian will be able to confirm this, there's always internal battles, right? Your brain is always, you're always fighting your brain in this sort of thing. And that's where it becomes difficult, where even if it's easy, you go on vacation and you miss a week, and then you come back and you struggle to get back into it, and then your brain starts trying to convince you it's not working, I'll give up, and all this sort of thing. So I think it's the internal battle that's hard. But if you follow the process, it shouldn't be.
Can you break down that internal battle for us a little bit? I think this is the part I am really interested. I have done a lot of study in this as well, and I find that humans are very conflicted animals. In the one hand, we want change, right? We all want change, but then on the other hand, we are very afraid of that very change that we want, because we are somewhat afraid of losing ourselves along that process.
Yes. Yeah. I think there is that tension, right, between wanting something and then also wanting the comfort of the status quo, of keeping things the same. And I mean, that's why I mentioned the rewards thing. You want to make the new behavior rewarding, and you want to make the old behavior painful. And the more that you can up the pain on the old behavior and up the rewards on the new behavior, that's going to shift the scales in the favor of doing the new behavior. But that's always going to be a battle between just sticking with the old and being comfortable, and the newness always does have, obviously it's uncertain, so there will always be that battle.
It's almost you're saying that by not having a new habit itself is a habit, that we by default have a lot of our own habit that was like literally running our life, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, they say that you are the sum of your consistent actions, right? So if I say to Brian, I tell someone Brian's a runner. Oh, does he run often? Oh, no, he ran once last month or something. He's not a runner then, right? His identity as a runner is defined by the fact that he would be running regularly in some way. Or if you say someone's calm under pressure, oh, are they always calm under pressure? No, they were calm under pressure once last year, but then since then they lose it every time there's pressure. Well, then you can't say they're calm under pressure. So we are defined by what we do consistently, which is in effect our habits. So that's why I think habits are so important, because if you want to change the results you get in life, you have to change what you do, and what you do stems from who you are, and who you are is your habits, is your consistent action.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And thinking about habits, obviously habits is so broad. I mean, people have all sorts of different goals. I think with business owners, executives, obviously stress is a big component, and people can get overwhelmed. And I know that was the case for me before I started working with Dr. K. Like even I think on the initial call, Dr. K had given me just a tip of, hey, take your work email off your phone. Like, you can still check it throughout the day. And immediately I just felt better, because before it was this constant stream of messages all day long. Like, I had my personal coming in, my work email, hundreds of emails a day. Wherever I was walking, I had this impulse to check it. And then just once by removing that, maybe that doesn't work for everyone, but for me, just that little change was a game changer. And so, Dr. K, I'm curious of kind of two different categories of habits. Like, one being for productivity, one being more for like wellness, relaxation, decompression. Kind of in those two categories, what are some of the top habits that you'd recommend to business owners out there?
So as you know, when I work with a business owner, we start with the personal habits first, and then we move into the business habits, because we want that sort of foundation personally to be strong before we then work into the business. So if I do it in that order, so personally, I think one of the most common things that a client will come and have issues with is sleep, and not having boundaries around work and leisure time. So working at all hours, maybe doing client work till midnight, and it affects their sleep and things like that. So sorting out your sleep routine, creating a shutdown ritual so that you draw the line between work and play, and then trying to prioritize like rest and recovery, and using things like walking, meditation, those sorts of things to try and bring that stability in personal life. And then in work, it's more around getting structure. So one of the things we worked on is the to-do list, trying to get that sort of under control. Time blocking, so allocating times for certain types of activity. A lot of people, when they first come and see me, it's just sort of free-for-all. They'll do a sales call, they'll have a call with a team member, they'll want to do other sort of more deep work, and actually separating those out so that they happen at certain times is really helpful. And also, just I think one of the big ones is carving out time to do deep work, making it like putting it in your calendar and saying, I'm going to do this deep work, rather than just going, I'll try and get around to it when I do. And you can't, because there's all this firefighting and other stuff that has to happen in the business, and all these other things you got to attend to. So you want to carve it out, make sure it happens.
Yeah, I think that's super important. In fact, we were just talking yesterday about this, where I was saying, hey, I'm really making an effort to do more outreach, and I'm giving people my meeting scheduler, and they can schedule whenever on my calendar, right? And it's great. I've had some really good conversations, but I was telling you yesterday, I'm like, it's got like 9 calls all day long, different times, a lot of them back to back. And so we had discussed setting up like from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's when I'm going to do my calls. 2 to 5 is more deep work. And of course, you can make some exceptions to that, but I think having that as like a structure is really helpful, and makes me a little bit more sane too. So I actually already did go ahead and update like my meeting scheduler hours to just 10 and 2. Like I said, obviously, for certain circumstances, I can take calls out of that too. But yeah,
and your calendar looked so much
better.
Calmer, didn't it? It looked so much better.
Yeah. I was like overwhelmed, before that.
It was stressful looking at that calendar.
I love that you're talking about this idea of deep work. Dr. K, can you maybe share a little bit more ideas on like what are some of the framework around it, and like habit people maybe try to do to get into that deep mindset? I personally often have the pitfalls of wanting to feel good then do work. But I think it should be the other way around, right? You need to form a habit that the action that makes you feel good, like the action itself should have that magic.
Yeah.
And then can you like explain it a little bit more on those concepts?
On deep work?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes people make the mistake that they think in order to focus, I have to think really hard and concentrate, which is kind of unpleasant when you think of it in that way. But what you want to think of is the focus is the absence of distractions. So if you can take away distractions, then by default, you'll be able to focus. So it's exactly like you say, Leo, it's about creating that habit. And so some of the things are about setting up your environment in a way that it's easier to focus. So closing the door, calendarizing it, so making an appointment that you don't break, closing all the unnecessary tabs and windows on your computer, turning off notifications on your phone, or turning it off, or leaving it in another room, making it so there's nothing else to do but focus. And if you can remove those distractions, it just makes it a lot easier. It's not about like gritting your teeth trying to concentrate. It's about taking it away, so then it's just the default.
Yeah,
state.
I love that. It's more really practically like actions you can actually do. I think a lot of people get too much in their head, like I need to feel at my best, like my most awakened hours, my least distracted mindset, so I can stay focused. So I don't think that's reliable, because like we're not going to be able to control how we feel. And often it's really more about the habitual action that we are able to keep doing that foster that mindset actually as a result of is often what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and also I'd say don't start with an hour deep work. Start with 10 minutes. If you haven't done it before, or you're not used to it, or you struggle with it, start with 10 minutes. And if you can do 10 minutes, then you can, gradually ramp it up. You're putting too much pressure trying to do an hour, or
I
however.
love that. And this is something I actually learned this year and try to push myself a lot more is every deep hour I have, or deep segment I have a end bound. So like when that hits, I cannot work. So I will have to force my brain to come up with some, willpower, sort of be able to think through within just 20 minutes of time instead of being very casually kind of lazily thinking,
Yeah, I think that's also true. Like the structure and having an endpoint is really helpful. Like Brian and I've worked with like the Pomodoro technique, which is basically setting a timer. Yeah, you set a timer for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever. Just knowing there's an endpoint, it makes it much easier to focus than if you sit down and go open-ended, I'm just going to try and concentrate or focus. That's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I love the Pomodoro. It's like, I had kind of been aware of it a little bit before, but again, wasn't really doing them consistently. But it is like this amazing hack where you can just become immediately productive. And when I hit the timer, you play music or whatever, but it's just like, I'm competitive with myself, like for 25 minutes or whatever time you want to set, so, and that just drives me of like, oh, how much can I get done in this 25 minutes versus like, if I'm just sitting there and I know I have another 25 minutes, but it's like, let me check email, let me check my Slack a little bit. Maybe I'll think about this idea, maybe I'll answer a few LinkedIn messages and it just, you're not focused and you don't have that timer. And I suppose maybe there's some people out there that don't like that, where it feels like pressure or something. But for me, I absolutely love Pomodoros as a great hack, and that's one of my daily.
Dude,
habits
I watch a
too.
bunch of people like online doing this, like a live, sessions. I always have so much admiration for them to be able to, even just like watching someone so focused is so inspiring for me, at least to kind of like, oh, I can actually do something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking too, I know one thing I want to mention like willpower, because I know that's something that you've talked about before, Dr. K, of like everyone thinks it's just willpower, right? And I think a lot of people still think that. I mean, I even in my head still think that, even though I know like habits is about, breaking it down and being consistent. Can you talk a little bit about how willpower alone, it's very rare for that actually to work?
Yeah, well, I think
maybe I don't want to say that incorrectly. I'm not sure, but
I think willpower is overrated.
I agree. I agree, because you think about a scenario where you're using willpower, and it's all fine the first day when you do it, and it's all fine when the sun's shining and you feel great and all that. But as soon as you have a bad night's sleep, or you're tired, or stressed, or busy, then the willpower is just not there anymore. And when those things happen, you fall back on habits, right? Whenever we're stressed, we fall back on whatever is our habit. And that's why it's beneficial to figure out the habits, create those habits. Then when you're in those stressful situations, you don't have to use willpower to try and stick to it. You fall back onto the habits. And the whole reason of making it small is that you don't need to use willpower. You want to take willpower out of the equation when you're creating the habit. You want to make it so small that it's just easy to do. You don't need to use any focus or any effort to try and do it. So you can actually try and take that willpower out of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it ties in a little bit with what you alluded to earlier, or I think we had just mentioned, if you go on vacation for a week and you don't do anything, you don't update your habit tracker, how do you get back into the swing of things? I mean, is it as simple as, hey, I'm not worried about that last week. I was on vacation with my family and the habit tracker is there for me to jump right back in? Or, like with you yourself, I think you had like a LinkedIn post about that. Is it as easy as the habit tracker? Or are there other kind of techniques for you to get back into the swing of things?
I think you summed it up, I reckon. So first, you just cut yourself some slack. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. You don't need to be perfect, and you're not a robot. And the habit tracker, absolutely. So if you've got the habit of checking the habit tracker, as soon as you get back to your normal surroundings, you'll check the habit tracker, because habits are very much based on context or environment. So there's certain things you won't do somewhere else that you will do when you're back home. So if the habit tracker is your habit, you cut yourself some slack, you get back into it, you look at the habit tracker. And then the third thing you want to do is, if you're struggling to get back into certain habits, then you just ease it back. So I think I told you in one of the sessions, I was doing like 100 push-ups a day before I went on vacation. And then I came back and I just wasn't getting back into it. So I actually brought it all the way back down to 1 push-up a day. And then I'm starting to do that again. And then, okay, I'll do 1. And then some days I'll do 5 or 10 or 20. But it's a lot easier than if I'd said, no, I've got to do 100. If I don't do 100, it's no point doing it. It's then easy to just stop doing it. So you've got to then, with other habits, you don't need to. But certain habits, if you're struggling to get back into them, just scale it back down again.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I remember I felt that too after being, on vacation with my family for a week, when I came back, and it was, I was trying to get back in the swing of things. And, the habit tracker is definitely, clutch to have, because I feel like without that, I would have been in a funk for a couple months or a couple weeks, but yeah. Having the habit tracker there was pretty helpful to get back going. And yeah, it's like, sometimes with the habit tracker, I'm like, oh man, it wasn't a very productive day. But if I'm on vacation or somewhere, it's like, do you recommend just, I guess it could be different for everyone, but do you recommend maybe not ignoring it, but just knowing that, like, hey, this is some like personal time, versus trying to update it on your vacation where you're like, hey, I did this, I did some sit-ups, whatever your habits are.
It sounds like that. Yeah. I think it's really hard to, in practical, I feel like a lot of people who really trying to form a habit, and they get really good framework, good ideas, and including have a notebook. And I think to start with that habit of going back to your journal to do it is really hard. Wouldn't you agree, Doctor? Like what advice can you give to people who even struggle with that? And I'm not saying just that I think it's really the hardest part.
As in going back to the habit tracker?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people really will struggle to keep a habit tracker. I know that is a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
For some reason.
So you need to treat it like every other habit, basically. So if you're thinking, I'm going to use a habit tracker, you need to figure out what's the trigger. So for instance, for me, when I open my laptop, I go to my habit tracker first. And I've created that sort of pattern where open laptop, check my habit tracker. It's the first thing I look at in the morning. And then you want to follow all the other things, like you want to make it small to begin with. All I need to do is just look at it. I don't need to fill it out. I don't need to do anything. Just need to look at it. You want to make it rewarding. So you want to think about, oh, it's really good. When I do use the habit tracker, I feel better. I feel more in control. If you start getting rewards. So the thing about rewards is it releases dopamine in your brain when you get that reward from doing something. And when you get that dopamine hit, it's not just that you feel good in the moment. It makes you crave to do it again in the same context next time. So for instance, if you after dinner have ice cream, you get that dopamine hit. The next night, you start thinking, oh, where's some ice cream? I feel like ice cream. It's that dopamine is making you want to do it. So if you can get a reward from the habit tracker and you can acknowledge it and be aware of it, that it's a beneficial thing, then you will want to seek it out the next day. And
so is the reward at the beginning, maybe at the lowest level, just acknowledge that you did it and then just like giving yourself some praise internally?
Yeah, exactly. And again, like with Brian, obviously it helps that I also give praise in the session as well. Oh, you did it, great, that sort of thing. So not obviously everyone has that accountability component, but just trying to find something positive out of it and treating it in the beginning as a habit that you're trying to develop. Because once you develop that habit, then everything else is easy. You can pick, I almost think like what I do is like a genie, because someone can go, I want this. Great, we've got the habit tracker.
That's why
have that.
I was like, it's really easy. It's almost like it's like a snowball. You gotta start from somewhere, and then gradually it's unstoppable.
It's unstoppable, yeah. And literally you can choose whatever I want to do. If I want the habit, I can do it, because it's plug and play. The system is there. You just plug the habit in,
I really love that, Doctor, especially when you said that, a lot of people will be like, okay, great system, but I can't even start with the habit tracker. But it sounds like what you're saying, it's really the ultimate game here is treat everything as a habit. Find your trigger, and the trigger can be really as small as you want, same as the reward, as long as you build some mechanism system in there. Over time, you're going to see that results.
Yeah, because I've also noticed a lot of clients do resist the habit tracker. Just like you said, they go, oh, I don't want to do it. And it's only when they understand the power of it, then they become motivated by it. It's like, well, if this is going to help with every other habit, then obviously you've got that motivation then drives you to want to create that habit as well.
I think it's my personal, so I write journal every day for the last 15 years. And that's my habit tracker. And I feel really good about it because how it's been helping me. And so I'm not just living in a very, emotional silo. I actually can look at the progress over time and see how things are changing. But I know how hard it is to actually getting to that point. But now it's like something I cannot not do.
Yeah. I think a lot of people also, they think initially it's just paperwork. Oh, I just have to track. It's paperwork. It's extra sort of spreadsheet to fill out. It's only once you realize what, like you would have felt with the journaling, that initially it was like, this is extra.
Yeah, I love it so much. It's like, I don't even use much digital process. Actually, you just handwrite it down. And I love that process of going through it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Leo, I'm curious. I know I've always been impressed with Leo's habits, and honestly, and I know you've been doing the journaling for a while, Leo. I'm curious. Is it do you do it at the same time every day, and is it set number of minutes, or does that vary just depending on what you want to write down?
Yeah, typically I do it the same time every day. It's kind of like what Dr. K was saying, like a trigger. So I wake up first thing in the morning while coffee is brewing. I usually just sit down and start to write. And I don't really have a complicated system. I usually just said, I'm grateful and for something yesterday. And that's very easy sentence to write because it's just yesterday. I remember something and I just went through that. And then what followed is a lot easier to write. I'm already in that mindset and I don't have any goals of anything other than just checking on what is one thing I'm wishing to finish today. And that's usually what I journal for the last 15 years.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. And I struggle with journaling or long form journaling, but recently the last couple of months I've been doing a very abridged gratitude journal, and pretty much do it daily. And I'm just writing 3, 4, 5 things that come into my mind that I'm, just reframing of like, oh, maybe I'm depressed, maybe I feel overwhelmed. But even for me, just taking a minute or two and writing some things down makes me feel better, and so.
It's so crazy. It's almost like a refugee for me. It's like now itself is actually creating a meaning on its own too. Like the fact that I actually have this moment, I go back to do a little bit of writing, and that moment itself is kind of like a fabric of my life in its own.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And like kind of thinking about habit trackers too. Dr. K, I'm familiar with your format. In fact, I think I just had a spreadsheet before that I used, and that. We've kind of worked with that. I know people can kind of get caught up with different productivity tools and whatnot. I mean, do you recommend people looking into those, or do you think it just kind of keep it simple and start with like a simple spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'm biased. I think the simple spreadsheet's enough. It's try and keep it as excuse me. Try and keep it as simple as will do the job. I think that's basically what you want to do. You don't want to overcomplicate it, make it so difficult that then you have to spend all this time trying to track it and monitor it. So keep it simple. But yeah, obviously different things work for different people. So some people will like that added level of complexity and things. But also remember, we use a spreadsheet as well because I've got to be able to see it as well. So that's a part of the reason as well.
Right. Yeah, because if it was like a productivity app, I mean, it's kind of hard to see like the week view.
Or a notebook.
Or notebooks, yeah. People are scanning pages and sending them to you.
I've had that.
Yeah.
I had in weight loss, people would do a food diary on a notebook, and then they would send it, and it was such a nightmare to all the pages are all out of order, and you're going back and forth. This is spreadsheet's so much easier.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I think. So the habit tracker, man, I mean, I could talk about for hours about how important it is and how much I love it. And it's funny, it's so natural now that I almost forgot that is a habit in itself. I think like Leo said earlier, or you might have, Dr. K, that one is like, that one's getting done every day.
It's probably the most important one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm curious too, when you're coaching people that, maybe they know what to do, they know they should use a habit tracker, they know they should start small, but they still are struggling to make themselves do it. What do you recommend in cases like that?
For the habit tracker or in general?
In general, yeah.
So in general, if there's some kind of procrastination or avoidance or hesitation of it, so some people will say, if they're not doing it, they'll attribute it to some kind of personal failing. Why aren't I doing it? I should be doing it. But I always think it's a signal. It's a signal that there's something about either the habit or the way that you're presenting the habit to yourself that we need to sort of figure out. So it's never that it's something wrong that you're doing. It's more that we just need to figure out how do we present it in a way that's more appealing or easier to do. It always comes back to the same thing. If you can make it as small as possible, that's always the key. So if there's something that's like, let's say, for example, go back to the meditation example. The thing was do 1 minute of meditation, and the client comes back next week and goes, I didn't do it. Well, then we bring it back down. We bring it down to 5 seconds, whatever, 1 second, 2 seconds, something so easy that it would be harder to not do it than to do it. Make it that easy, and often that overcomes it. And the funny thing is, and this is true for me, it's true for everyone, no matter how many times you do it, you'll still forget it on some things, right? You'll have used that technique so many times, and then there'll be one thing that you just don't do it, and you go, oh, actually, I should have just brought it down to a small amount, but it usually works.
Yeah, and one, I know the example you shared about, doing like 100 push-ups a day, kind of stopping doing that, restarting.
I really want to see you guys doing 100 push-up day.
We've talked about this. I mean, I actually have Dr. K and I have talked about this because I think we both have some like wrist pain, and so we sometimes will talk about like ways to kind of mitigate that, whether you're doing it on stairs or you're doing a different.
I got the wrist pain from the 100 push-ups.
Oh, you did? Oh, shit. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So that's why I have to be very careful with it.
Yeah. And then so I'm curious though, like when you start back doing, one a day, like how quickly are you amping that up? And it could go for any habit, with your clients where, it makes sense. Go back to like the smallest you can do. Do you recommend doing that consistently for a week, slowly stepping that back up, or how do you recommend that they scale back up?
Yeah, I think you just have to play it by ear because it's just a matter of how comfortable you feel. So let's say I said I'm doing 1 push-up a day and I do it 3 days and then I miss 2 days or something like that. Well, then I shouldn't really go up to 2 because I haven't really done the 1 yet properly. But I wouldn't say there's like you must do it for a week or you must do it for 2 weeks. You'll get the feel if you're doing it every day, 1 a day, and you start feeling like, yeah, this is good. And the fact of the matter is no one will ever just do 1 a day. Like I never do 1 a day.
Right.
It's crazy. You do 1, you'll end up doing 3 or 4, but it's 1 minimum. So that there's a very low threshold for doing it. So I could be doing something, I was like, oh no, I need to do that one push-up. It's easy to do. It's not like, oh, I've got to do 100. But yeah, you play it by ear. And as long as you start feeling like you're comfortable doing it, then you start ramping it up. And again, how fast you ramp it up, you play it by ear. I might ramp it up to 50 quite quickly because I was previously doing 100. Whereas if I've never done push-ups before, then I might go 1 to 5 to 8 to 10 or whatever. It's got to be flexible with it. And always cut yourself slack. Always try and make yourself, the default should be you should feel good at the end of it. You never want the habit formation to make you feel bad or that you failed. You know, you always want to avoid that feeling of failure. It needs to be a pleasant process.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And I think so. We want to kind of transition just a little bit, kind of thinking about the industry of habit coaching, and then we also want to kind of pick your brain a little bit on how you acquire customers, and some of that. But I guess first, where do you see the field of habit coaching going, over the next 5-10 years? I know there's the advent of AI now, so obviously that brings new tools. People can journal with ChatGPT, like a dynamic type journal. There's things like wearables where you can journal, and in fact that's actually something that I want to try because it seems kind of cool. But just kind of curious your thoughts on where the industry is going over the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, bear in mind, I didn't see Ozempic coming from Hanoi, so I don't know if I'm the right person to ask. I always find it interesting because when I started the weight loss clinic and I was talking about habits, and we're talking, this is 2009, 2010, people didn't really understand habits, or it wasn't really on their radar, and it was quite a hard sort of sell. And then that book, Atomic Habits, came out, and now everyone talks about habits, and it's really sort of in the mainstream. So it really, I don't know. It depends on what sort of. There's things that you can't even predict that could come up. Whether AI could replace a person in doing habit coaching, I'm not brave enough to say that's not possible because how do we know?
Yeah. No.
Are you
absolutely.
adopting any new techniques or maybe like more AI related tools that do help forming more habits behavior that you see, Doctor?
The only one that I've started recommending to clients is this idea of when you're feeling negative. So there's this concept, it's a book by Benjamin Hardy called The Gap versus the Gain. And basically, to briefly say what that is, the gap is when you are focused on where you should be and you get depressed about it. So, my business should be at this level, I feel down about it. And the gain is where you compare where you were to where you are now. So the business was this small and now it's this big. And so that idea of gap versus gain. So what I sometimes recommend to clients is using AI to go in the morning, put me in the gain, ChatGPT, put me in the gain, and give me 3 reasons why I should be in the gain. And then it sort of comes up. So it's kind of like your on-demand
Glass is half full,
coach.
kind of a
Cheerleader kind of thing that you've got access to. So that's pretty much, I think that's one of the ways I'm doing it. But yeah, I'm sure there's going to be many more applications.
sort of what you're
for it.
saying. It's like adding that maybe cushion of reward that maybe you don't have a counterpart that can do for you on a regular basis.
Yeah, because it's 24/7 available. It's there for you. It doesn't get sick of you asking for reassurance. It's there's definite benefits to AI from that point of view.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I know, Brian, you might be wanting talking a bit more. And there's one more area. I was wondering maybe we could touch base, Doctor, a little bit on the habits, then we can maybe dive a bit more in the biz dev as well. So we talk a lot about positive habits. I'm curious about your research and I know on like removing bad habits in your life. We talk about addiction, depression. These are all things that come up. And am I thinking about the same way you are talking about cold turkey would be a really bad idea?
I generally feel that. Although, I mean, it works for some people, but usually the clients who come and see me are the ones that cold turkey didn't work, right? So I get a kind of skewed, probably, population of people coming to me, but I don't find cold turkey to be that beneficial. So you want me to talk about like how you approach
I love
bad
that.
habits?
Yeah, because I know it kind of sounds like a lot of stuff we talk about, like the willpower can play at the front end to give you that dopamine of you conquer a lot of things, but then it's a marathon. A lot of the issues that folks dealing with, and I'm curious about like what do you see and what is some of the honest advice you can provide folks that are going through that.
So I think with sort of bad habits, I think the first thing is awareness. Like you want to know what's actually happening because it's very common for like when there's bad habits, like let's take an example like binge eating. Let's say it's very tempting to sort of sweep it under the rug and not want to think about it, pretend it hasn't happened. But with any bad habit, you want to just have awareness of what's going on. So how often is it happening? What am I doing? That sort of thing. And then in that awareness, you want to know what are the triggers. So there's often a trigger and a payoff to any behavior. You do it for a reason. There's some positive impact that it has. And if you can sort of tease out what is the trigger and what's the payoff, then you can kind of almost try and solve what it is and try and replace it. So if the trigger is, it's often environments. Environments are kind of like the big contributor to bad habits. So if you can change the environment, that can help. And then if you can find something that gives you that payoff without using that particular thing, that's also the other way of doing it. So changing the trigger and getting the payoff from something else, those are kind of the principles that you'd use to do that. So for example, let me give you an example. So I binge eat every night to relax because my job is really stressful, right? And so most people go, use willpower, don't binge eat, grit your teeth, stop from doing it. But what I would say is, okay, you've probably associated that with a certain room in the house, maybe. So sitting in front of the sofa, I associate with binge eating. And I certainly will eat more in front of the sofa than I will if I'm upstairs. So maybe changing the environment is useful. And then also thinking, why am I binge eating? Well, I'm binge eating because I'm stressed and I want to relax. So are there other things I can do to relax? You know, is it going for a walk? Is it talking to a friend? Is it meditating? Just trying to find other things. You can't create a vacuum. You can't just say, I'm going to stop doing it. Because then where are you going to get that payoff from that you want? You're doing it for the reason. So you have to replace it.
And at this very
with
moment, you
something else.
also are not completely stop binge eating either. You might still do a little bit of that, but maybe to some degree. But you also are introducing other things as small as they could be at the same time.
Yeah.
Is that how I understand? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And also with binge eating, I mean, I don't know if this works with other things, but with binge eating definitely is, it's about accessibility. So I often say there's kind of a proximity thing with food. So if you've got, say, a bowl of potato chips and it's on your lap, you're going to eat more than if it's on the coffee table where you have to reach over. You wouldn't think that would make a difference, but it would. And similarly, if it's in the kitchen and you have to keep going back to get small portions of it, you're going to have less. And even more than that, if it's back at the supermarket, if the bag of potato chips is at the supermarket, then that makes it obviously a lot harder to engage in the activity. So you want to kind of use the environment to your benefit by not having certain things in the house, but not denying yourself of them, saying, I'm allowed to have potato chips, but if I have them, I have to go to the supermarket, I have to buy the small packet, bring it back and eat it, and then if I want more, I have to go back again, and kind of create obstacles. Our whole modern existence is around convenience, but you want to make these sort of things inconvenient, right? You want to actually put up physical barriers to getting them, but never telling yourself, I'm not allowed to have it. Because if you say you're not allowed, you're going to want them more. You're going to create the craving for it.
Really? So are you also saying, like, can we say that, like, can we use that as an example of, like, if you are feeling comfortable? I'm saying that, what if someone, like, say, having drinking alcohol issues, right? And then is the mindset there is like, you're not really beating yourself down, like, how can I be a drinker and all of this, right? You admit, yes, I am a drinker. Actually, I'm allowed to drink at this point. But you also say that I'm not going to have all these beers in my fridge all the time. I'm going to actually, if I want to drink, I'm going to actually make an effort to only buy a couple of beers that I'm going to drink that day or something like that, and use that as sort of quantity reduction without a drastic failure of a blow up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there's lots of different ways to approach that same problem. And some people do try cold turkey. And they, you know, I think AA is basically saying it's a disease and you shouldn't, you know, you've just got to treat it like a disease and never do it. But there's obviously different ways to approach the same problem. And that's definitely, you'd have to try lots of different things. It's never going to be just one thing. Like if you just say, I'm only going to have beers at home, that might help. But then you're obviously going to have to deal with social situations or when you're out and things like that. So you've got to be flexible around how you've got to deal with every single part of it.
Got you. So what you're saying is a more maybe universal framework to think about is just like what you're talking about habit. It's like think about the trigger and the reward and digging from there to figure out what are some of the micro moments that you are facing and how you can optimize those moments.
Exactly. And that's why it's not an easy fix, right? So in some ways, the simple fix is to say, it's a difficult fix, but don't drink. Like that's a simple, and that's maybe why it's often a mass market way of dealing with things. But if you're willing to put in the effort and the energy focused about thinking about it, this way, obviously it takes a lot more thinking about, you've got to confront all the different scenarios you're in, come up with solutions for each of them, which a lot of people are not going to want to do and not going to be motivated to do. But if you can, then you can find a way to sort of handle the situation in a way that doesn't require you to just suddenly stop.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that like we've talked about before, Dr. K, whether it's like late night, eating snacks unhealthy, right? Or if somebody is, actively trying to lose weight, I think a lot of people think, do calorie counting, obsess about everything. And I know one of the things you talk about is just journal on that specific bad habit. Like
yes.
Journal the next morning how you feel. Is your stomach upset? Do you feel, if it's alcohol, do you feel hungover? Do you feel not productive? And so can you talk about just the importance of
I'd love to hear more about
just
that.
journaling on it instead of obsessing about, say, calorie counting or something like that?
Yeah, so I think that the principle there is that any behavior you do has a reward and has a downside, right? Especially when we're talking about a bad habit, in quotes. And often if you're engaged with that bad habit, you see the benefits, but you kind of don't see the downside of it, right? And to change a behavior, you want to bring the downside from the far future to the present. So let's say with overeating, people will go, oh, I'll gain weight. But that's not going to happen immediately, right? You don't have a chocolate bar and gain weight immediately. So you push that into the future, so it's less certain. Therefore, it's less motivating to you to change your behavior because it's something that's going to happen in the future. Whereas you not eating the chocolate bar now, you miss out on that wonderful taste of chocolate. So you want to reverse that by trying to find what is the immediate negatives that you feel when you have chocolate. And so let's say it's, I feel a sick taste in my mouth, I get reflux, or I feel bloated, or try and find some kind of things and bring it as soon as it happens, try and find those things. And what often happens is I'll say to people, journal that, and they'll go, yeah, I didn't notice anything. And then as they do it more and more, they start realizing, actually, there's a lot of downsides to this that I wasn't even aware of, right? They're just sort of, they're happening. They were always happening, but I never really noticed them. And the more those things become apparent and you start noticing them more and more, it suddenly starts to become like the equation shifts. It's like, yeah, I can have this chocolate, it tastes nice, but I'm going to feel reflux, and I'm going to feel sick, and I'm going to feel bloated. And then when that equation changes, it becomes easier then to make different decisions. Because previously you just saw the good, and the negative was somewhere off in the future. Whereas now it's like, there's an immediate consequence to this, and then it becomes easier to sort of make that decision.
Yeah, and it's different than just thinking about the negative effects, right? Like you, I think you say, if you're
very dangerous.
It's like double points, right? It's
yes.
Because I think everybody who overeats or drinks too much or whatever the bad habit is, like, there's negative effects, and you probably think about them. Yeah,
that's the trick.
I
think that's the hardest part, because like we really are often thinking about this very, very remote, long distance future. Me is going to suffer. That's none of my business.
Yeah, and also the negative effects, often people know about them, but it's often guilt. And I often say, forget about guilt. Every dieter uses guilt, and it doesn't work. It's physical effects that are much more motivating, right? And they will motivate you to make change rather than the guilt. The guilt is not.
Doctor, helpful. What do you say to people who really are so deep in their bad habit? We talk about maybe very severe addiction, and often, they really are fighting this unsurmountable mountain. They are like, it's too late for me. I already like, what do you say to people who are really like facing those kind of mindset in dealing with their bad habit?
Yeah, so if it's severe addiction, like, they wouldn't come to me. That's you would seek out like a specialty addiction service. I hopefully would not be the port of call for someone who's really in a severe addiction situation.
Right. But let's assume like people who are sort of having this procrastinating mindset towards the bad habit they try to reduce in their mind, in their life, and they sort of using this like, oh, it's been this way, right? It has
Yeah.
always been this. Is it too late for me? I'm
Right.
40. What I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
people will get
Yeah.
into that mindset and just like, I'm just doomed, like that kind of mindset. Like, how do you tell people that and how to find
Yeah.
will, to fight back?
Well, to be honest, the kind of person who comes to see me is not, it wouldn't have given up all hope because they wouldn't come to see me. So I don't know if I see people who are really like that far have given up. But I think it always comes back to trying to make it as smaller step as possible as the initial step. So if you feel like, oh, I can't do it, there's no hope at all, you want to make that first step so small that it's kind of easy to do. I think that's where people get into trouble, where they feel no hope and then they think what I need to do is so big that it's so intimidating that you just don't want to do it. Whereas if that first step is really small, even if you feel like there's no hope, you'd give it a try. And then all you want to do is do that first step, do the second, third, and then build momentum. Once you go, it's all about that lack of momentum that's stopping people from making those changes. Once you build that momentum, it just becomes easier. It's like pushing a car. To begin with, it's so hard, but once you start pushing it, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and it's funny how, or not funny, but it's just fascinating how a lot can be taken back to that concept of start small, get momentum, build consistency in whatever you're trying to do. So Leo, I'm thinking about switching over to kind of
let's do it.
Dr. K's business, and we can talk a little bit about that, a little bit separate from just kind of general habit stuff. But Dr. K, I know generally on this podcast we like to talk mostly to marketers. We're talking about metrics, we're talking about goals they have, tactics, etc. Curious to hear a little bit from you about your practice, your company. Maybe how long you've been doing it, and then how do you go about acquiring customers? Like is it specific online channels? Is it word of mouth? So if you could speak a little bit about that, that'd be great.
So how I get clients?
Yeah, how you get new clients? Yeah.
Yeah. So with weight loss, it was quite interesting. Not that many referrals. It was really quite interesting. So I used pay per click for weight loss. So I used Facebook and Instagram ads. With this more agency owner habit related things, it's mainly been referrals that I've used, and also I do weekly webinars, which I think they're more like lead nurturing rather than actually drawing in the leads themselves, but it's more lead nurturing, and also clients come to as well, so it's client nurturing as well. And I'm also, as you know, recently started on LinkedIn. I'm going to try and sort of go all in on that to try and get clients from that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know we've talked about LinkedIn and outreach and content in general. In fact, that was one of the things I was procrastinating on like 2-3 months ago. Now I'm like obsessed with posting on LinkedIn and engaging with others. And I think that is a great channel, but it is one of those, it's kind of a slow burn. I think it takes a while to really build up authority. And it's interesting. I think we were chatting the other day just about like metrics, like do you set goals of I want to get X amount new clients per month, or do you go about that a little bit differently? I think you were talking more about process metrics versus like outcome metrics.
Yeah. So I've found outcome metrics like I want to get this or do that. I don't find them very good, because if I don't get there, and I don't really have control over the result of what I do, I have control over what I do. So I focus on process metrics more than outcome. So it'll be things like I want to publish this many times on LinkedIn, for example, rather than I want to get X number of clients from LinkedIn. Because if I focus on X number of clients from LinkedIn, I'm probably not going to get them in the first month, and then I'm going to be discouraged and down about it and then want to give up. Whereas if my only goal was I want to post this many times, it's going to be a lot easier to stick with it.
So you're evaluating your own action, basically, like your effort, basically.
Yeah, what I have control over, rather than what I don't have control over.
I think a lot of people are really going the other way around. It's just like, oh, I want to get 10 clients next month, and but really what it should be is like, I want to make 100 calls next month.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember when I went to Dr. K, in the beginning, I was very much like, oh, I need to be at this MRR this quarter, this MRR, this many clients, this many, account managers. And, it's tough when you have that, right? Because like you said, if you don't hit those targets, you kind of feel bad, you lose motivation. But instead, if you break it down to like, yeah, I'm going to do this many, let's say cold email, I'm going to post on LinkedIn every day, I'm going to do a case study every week, the actions that can deliver clients, it's a lot easier to work with.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I think it was like, what was that? Something I heard it before. It's like people tend to think it's like result equals to happy, but it's really more happy equals to result. It's like like it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, cool. I know this last section, Dr. K, just want to give you a little bit of time just to like let people know how they can find out more about you. I know you've got your website. You mentioned the webinars. I think you even have some promotional first client calls that you do. So if you could just speak a little bit about that, how people can find you and get in touch, that'd be great.
Yeah, so my website is Dr. as in the word doctor, DOCTOR, drkhabits.com. And if you go there, you'll see a lot about what I do and things like that. And then the promotional one is drkhabits.com/free-session. And you can get
we'll put all of that on the contents as well.
Cool. So that's a habit audit session where I'll sit down with you, we'll talk about current situation, current habits, and figure out the one habit that you could develop that will move the needle the most, and then I'll give you a plan for how to do that. So it's quite a packed session, but it can be really good.
That's awesome. And that I know we were talking about kind of how you acquire new customers. I mean, I came as a referral from Justin Lewis about a year and a half ago, and like I mentioned too, I got so much value out of that free session. So highly recommend to anyone out there to check that out. And then just to clarify, Dr. K, is it your audience? I mean, is it just agency owners? Could it be stressed out executives at like corporate positions? Like who are you really aiming to get for clients?
It can apply to anyone really, but it's just so happened that most of my clients are agency owners. But it can apply to anyone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for joining the podcast, Dr. K. Leo,
thanks
I don't know if you had anything else, but yeah, this has been great.
It's so many like heavy hitting contents, Dr. K. Really appreciate your contribution, and I think our listener definitely will benefit a lot from your knowledge here.